The comparison trap is one of the biggest reasons that pharmacists get stressed out, frustrated, and overwhelmed with where they are in their careers. And something happened to me at the gym, literally just now, that gave me so much clarity about why we get twisted in this trap that I want to share it with you, along with 3 simple tips that are extremely effective to help you free yourself from comparison. And that's what we're going to cover in this episode. So gear up, Fit Pharm fam, because you are about to have a breakthrough. Real talk. I was at the gym squatting and I had something happen. So I've been lifting as a lifetime drug-free competitive bodybuilder for going on 17 years now. And it's just become a lifestyle. I really love it. It's where the Fit Pharmacist originated, and it's been an awesome thing that I still do on a daily basis. But I was squatting at the gym and I was using this technique. It's an intensity technique called drop sets, which is an advanced resistance training technique where you focus on completing a set, so a grouping of repetitions, so like rep 1, rep 2, rep 3, until failure, until you can't go anymore. Then you drop the weight significantly and repeat it with little to no rest. So you're lifting a weight, you can't lift it anymore, and rather than resting or stopping, you significantly drop the weight and then you keep going to push through. It's an intensity technique. I promise this has relevance to pharmacy. But what happened was, I ended up dropping my weight to like really low, the weight that I was working out with. It was like really, really low weight, but I was doing it for a lot of repetitions. Normally, you go for, 8, 10, 12 repetitions. I was going for 30, which is kind of a high number. And it was such low weight, but at the end of the set, I was kind of like laughing, like, wow, I made that light weight feel super heavy because I was so exhausted from all the work that I'd done previously in order to get to that point where I really pushed my body beyond its limits. And that's when it hit me. The comparison trap that we all too often fall into is taking where we are, where we're falling short, where we're struggling, and then we look to gauge whether or not we're crazy or if this is the standard, and look to someone else without recognizing their experience. Did they just start working out? Have they been working out for 10, 20, 30 years longer than you have? Are their goals the same? Because for me, I literally made myself exhausted so that I would have to use lighter weight in order to get that extra stimulus. That might not be what their goal is. They might have more weight trying to go for maybe a 1 rep max or whatever that might be. So if we're not taking into context a few key factors, it can really get us twisted, and we all fall into this comparison trap for these main reasons. And the reason I want to share this example is because I think it really highlights what all of us pharmacists are so good at doing on a daily basis, but we don't recognize why we have these disempowering emotions. What we do recognize is how far behind we are in comparison to someone else. How they seem to always get the lucky breaks, and we're always getting twisted in the weeds, the details, trying to figure out how to do things when seemingly they just walk on water, kind of, so to speak. Now, the things that you need to recognize is, 1, don't compare yourself to other people. You've heard that before, but we all do it, so let's just be real. It can be good and healthy at times for that competitive, friendly competition, whatever you might say. But if you do it too often without recognizing these main concepts, it'll really mess you up in the head. So you have to recognize what people's goals are. Are your goals the same as those you're comparing them to? Let's take personal branding for an example. If your goal is to grow your followers, let's say on Facebook, because you just feel like that's what people are doing and it's not really tied to an outcome. And you just started, like you're a month or two in, all right? You're all on that brand train. You're like, okay, well, I need to get followers because that's what a brand is, right? That ain't what it is. And you can read up on more of my content about what it really is elsewhere, but I digress. And you compare that to someone whose entire business is coaching people on how to grow Facebook groups. So you're here with, 10 followers, 9 of them are your family and you're the other one. And you're comparing to someone that has 60,000 followers, but that's all they do 12 hours a day. They've been doing it for a decade. It's their business. If they don't succeed, they ain't putting food on the table for their family. You can see how that can really wreak havoc if you don't understand the goal and the context behind where you started with where someone else has started. So, knowing the context of what you're comparing is super key, because 110% out of the time, what you're comparing are apples to kiwi instead of apples to apples. You ain't comparing the same thing. So it's likely going to get you twisted. So there's a few things that I want to give you advice on how to escape the comparison trap and not even get twisted in that in the first place. The first antidote to the comparison trap is to very simply know what you want and why you want it. You have to know your outcome. So going back to the gym example, my outcome was to push my muscles beyond failure. So once I hit it, I dropped the weight and kept going. I dropped the weight and kept going. And because I've been lifting consistently for 17 years, the body adapts and you have to come up with innovative ways, intensity techniques to get the same kind of response with whatever your goal is, muscle growth, fat loss, whatever that might be. Someone else might not have that goal. Someone else might have been lifting longer than I have. Someone else might just be going through a standard set where they, get kind of weak and then they rest and repeat. So you have to know what your outcome is. And if you do happen to compare, consider that someone else's results or what they're doing or whatever you're comparing it to might have totally different outcome that they're going after. So you have to really consider and know what you want and why you want it, because everyone has a different path and process to get there. It doesn't mean yours is wrong. It doesn't mean theirs is better. It means that you're on a path and a journey at a pace, starting from a place that is unique and specific to you, not to someone else, not to your neighbor, not to where you think you should be, but really taking stock on what you want, why you want it, and what you need to get out of it. Because that path is different for every person, depending on where you are starting, where you want to go, and a pace or rate of progression that is realistic for you. Have you ever in your pharmacist life looked in the mirror and thought to yourself, wow, I thought I'd be farther ahead by now? If you have, you're not alone. Every pharmacist wants a fulfilling career that makes use of their hard-earned PharmD. But unfortunately, that's not the norm that you see and hear about in our profession. Burnout, no work-life balance, stress and anxiety, crippling your personal life, and feeling financially bound to an unfulfilling job to pay the bills is not what you signed up for in pharmacy school. We know that there's great opportunities in pharmacy, but with so much competition in a saturated job market and no guarantees that the grass really is greener on the other side, most pharmacists make the choice to stay stuck, knowing that something better is out there, but not acting on it because we get in our own way of making the change we know we need to make and become our own worst enemy. So I decided to do something about it. I created a live one-day workshop to give you the exact process that pharmacists need to bridge the gap from where they are to where they're looking to go. To attend this event, simply register today at thefitpharmacist.com/workshop. Show up and take part in the biggest breakthrough experience of the year. Sign up at thefitpharmacist.com/workshop today. If you do, you'll learn the tools and capabilities you need to flip your script from resenting your job into having the career you went to pharmacy school for in the first place. Do not let another day go by feeling like you know you're meant for more, but not sure where to begin. Sign up today at thefitpharmacist.com/workshop, and I'll see you there to dispense your full potential. The second thing that you need to know in order to not only prevent comparison, but escape from it should you fall into it, is not know what to do, but know what not to do. That's right. It's to-dos versus to-don'ts. And here's what I mean by that. Oftentimes, as pharmacists, we love our to-do lists. I mean, I'm gonna be real with you. It's super satisfying to take your magical pen when you've got a list and cross that sucker off or put a little check mark next to it. It feels like progress because it is. So we get hooked in this to-do list thing. But what ends up happening is we want that sense of accomplishment. We want to feel that achievement. We want to feel that progress. So we keep writing things down. But what happens is we fill that list up with things that distract us from tip number one, knowing what you want and why you want it, knowing your outcome. Because if you're just checking things off a list to feel successful, that's not going to necessarily help what you want, is it? So make sure you're aware of your to-don'ts, the things that are not in alignment with what are important to you. Because if you get into checking things off, if you get into task lists that are not aligned with your goals, but they help someone else's goals, and you see someone that's successful, but you don't know their backstory, you don't know their circumstance, but all you look at is what they're doing, you might get twisted in thinking that you have to do what they do in order to get where they are without recognizing the whole story behind it, without recognizing that it's not a fair comparison. So you need to really, that's where this piece of self-awareness is so important, and why I started with number one is knowing what you want and ensuring that the lists you make, the actions you take are in alignment with where you're looking to go. The third thing, and this is huge, because you hear this all the time, don't compare, comparison's bad. It actually ain't. Comparison can be a great reality check. However, you have to use it with appropriate context. The devil's in the doses, they say, so your dose of comparison is important. And coming back to a big point throughout this episode is context. So oftentimes we hear comparison and immediately think we're comparing ourselves to others. One of the best things you can do is to compare yourself to yourself. And I'm not saying be self-deprecating or hard on yourself to the point where you're like, oh, I should be farther ahead. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is compare yourself, the version you are today, with how far you've come. Because here's something you need to hear loud and clear. The past does not equal the future. So your failures, your setbacks, your mistakes, whatever you want to label them as, just because them happened back there, don't mean they happen up front. Your past does not equal your future. And rather than comparing yourself to other people or feeling like you should be somewhere else or you should be farther ahead than where you are and all this other stuff that we're so good at getting twisted in as pharmacists, you need to look at how far you've come from when you've started. Because here's the truth. As a soul, you're complete. You're the real deal. There's nothing wrong with you. The skills and abilities required in order to get you to where you want to go faster in a more efficient way, that's what needs developed. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone to pharmacy school. Continuing education wouldn't be a mandatory requirement as a pharmacist. If you're not growing, you're dying. So if you're gonna stay alive, you're gonna be growing in one way or another. Just make sure that you're growing in a direction that you want to grow in. And the way to do that is having a very clear, compelling future for where you're looking to go. And here's the magic of this. There's no wrong answer. There's no goal that's better or less than another. And that's where comparison can get us twisted. Use these three as tools of clarity to escape and prevent getting snared in comparison. They are wreaking havoc on pharmacists everywhere, but you don't have to be one of them. We all get twisted at times, but if you use these, I promise you it will serve you well to help you dispense your full potential. And that's my call to you right now. Go be great, go forth and dispense your full potential. Live a life worthy of the calling you have received. God gave you this vision, this dream, not to go and share with other people per se. He gave it to you. So why do you expect other people to understand it? It's your gift. It's your vision. Approach it accordingly and stay focused on your outcome. God bless.
I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear.